So last year was the 20th anniversary of this park, and they showed a lot of the major home runs. And one of the biggest ones, probably the biggest one for a road team, was the one Barry Bonds hit here on a Sunday night that hit like off that McDonald's sign out here. What do you remember about that home run?
The thing I remember about it was that when he came to the plate, they're all booing him, and you know they booed him everywhere. And then he hits this home run, and the place went nuts. They were just awestruck by it. I was awestruck by it. That's the longest one I've ever seen hit here. I never saw one that went all the way up there. And it wasn't right down the line and hit the third deck. It was out toward right center. So it was pretty astonishing. It was similar in some ways to when he hit at Yankee Stadium. It was the same thing. The people are getting all over him, and then he crushes the longest home run that I think the people there had ever seen.
Is that the one you get asked about? The one at Yankee Stadium where he comes up, Bob Shepard says his name, and then I think you said this one's on its way to New Jersey. Is that like the one you get asked about the most?
Maybe. But it cleared, it went over halfway up in the upper deck and cleared this tunnel that was halfway up where people could come into the seat area. And Mike Krukow went up there the next day before the game to just have a look at it to see where it was. And but the crowd went nuts at Yankee Stadium. They were just a huge roar. Which, when do you hear that at Yankee Stadium? You hear people boo or whatever, but I think it just took their breath away. I saw something similar. We were at Wrigley Field, and it was a radio game for me, and my partner was on. It was his inning, so I went down to make a video from. I went down a ramp at Wrigley Field, where I'm at the top of the second deck, and Barry's up, and they bring in a left-hander from the bullpen to face him, and the Cubs are 4 or 5 runs ahead, and then Barry hits this spectacular home run against this tough left-hander who's a specialist who gets lefties out regularly, and you know, it's not just that I'm hearing it, I'm down in the crowd seeing people just go nuts, and so I think that was something you saw a lot of, which I think when you think about it, you know, Barry got booed, and they loved it if he'd strike out in ballparks all over both leagues, but ultimately, especially when he was moving up on the all-time list toward Aaron, he'd actually hit one, and people got excited. Like they saw it. They saw him when he hit numbers, 740 or 748 or whatever it was, and because I think that's they hope that their guys get him out and strike him out, and they can go nuts about that. And if he hit one, well, they say, oh yeah, I was there when he hit number 748, and man, did he crush that one. And even at Dodger Stadium, it was getting really close, and it might have been 1 or 2 away, and they're booing him when he comes up, and then he hits one to right field, and they get excited, thinking, oh, he's done it, oh my God, and then it got caught on the warning track, and then Dodger Stadium's like, oh, and so I think people do want to see those historic things when they occur, and barring that, they want to see their guy strike it out. So I remember for years, a bad place for Barry was Coors Field, which you didn't follow that like that. Should have been a great place. It was great for a lot of people, but for Barry, and I think maybe he was trying to pad his home run totals or whatever, but most of the time he did not do well there until the year he hit the 73 home runs. And just before September 11th, I think it was September the 10th, the Giants had a Sunday game there, and he hit 3 in that game, including one off the back wall in center field beyond the Christmas tree farm, which is like 490-something feet away. So that year, even Coors Field, which is sort of been his kryptonite. Barry was hitting the long run.
Are there any home run calls other than the Bonds one that you called in this stadium or at the Vet that stand out in your career to you?
Well, I mean, I really don't even remember what I said. I think that, you try to capture the moment, especially on radio. TV, you could just not say anything and everybody'd be fine with that. They'd hear the roar of the crowd, they watch it go. But I know, it seems to me that, so that was when Barry hit the one in Philadelphia. Joe and I were on together.
Yeah.
And then Joe made the observations. The people are on their feet to give Barry a standing ovation here for that spectacular home run. They appreciate that kind of an achievement, and even against their team in their home ballpark.
Does this still kind of amaze you? I'm sure a ton of people come up to you and still say, "We miss when you and Joe Morgan did Sunday Night Baseball." I see a post on social media like once a week of how many people miss that era.
Well, I mean, it's gratifying if I happen to see that, but at the same time, I had 21 years where Joe and I were together in prime time every Sunday night. Who gets a run like that on national TV? So,
yeah.
I mean, we had no regrets, and it was probably time for us for them to do something different anyway. So, but I think the main thing for us was that we had fun, and it was great that when the thing started, the idea was it was 26 weeks of Sunday Night Baseball, and we would be in 26 ballparks. We could never go to a ballpark a second time. So that was the first time in baseball and national TV that every ballpark was going to be included. Because when we started, there were only 26 teams.
Right.
So we were going everywhere. And I think we enjoyed that. Right away, we're going to every ballpark every year. So, and I think as time went on, they thought, well, if we could go to Yankee Stadium a second time, that would be good, or Fenway, or Wrigley, or Dodger Stadium, or the ballparks that people really want to see. But I think for us, the thing I really remember was 1990 when we started. Ken Griffey Jr. was a young, up-and-coming guy. So we not only saw Ken Griffey Jr. on national TV, but Joe had known him since he was a little kid and had been a teammate of his dad's. And so we're not only seeing Griffey, we're seeing him at the Kingdome.
Yeah.
Which, when was the Kingdome ever on national TV with Mariners baseball? They were still kind of a team down, and I think Griffey that year ended up being voted into the All-Star game, and I think a lot of people really felt that national exposure on ESPN helped him get well enough known that was sort of something that became inevitable that he would get voted in. So, and as time went on, of course, he ended up being one of the greatest players of the era, and voted on many lists, the greatest of that era, or even of the 20th century. So not so surprising. But at that time, he was in a ballpark that nobody ever saw, on a team that nobody ever saw, whose games happened late at night on the East Coast that weren't even in the papers the next morning. So I think that was fun for us. And as the Griffey era went on, it wasn't just Griffey, but a whole bunch of guys. Edgar Martinez came along, and Randy Johnson, and Jay Buhner, and all these guys, and then Ichiro later on. They ended up with one of the most exciting and dynamic teams in the game. And then, then they beat the Yankees in a postseason series in '95. So anyway, so I think that was the fun for us, that we kept going and seeing all these things. Plus, I was still doing the local games, which is the most fun for me. And but then on the weekend, going away and going to see somebody else. So it was best of both worlds for a baseball fan like me.
Last thing, because I know you got to run, but did you have a relationship with Harry Kalas, and what was that like? Because obviously he's revered here.
Well, Harry, before he came to the Phillies, had been in Houston.
Yeah.
He'd been in Hawaii, and then got hired by the Astros. Well, Joe Morgan was one of the young stars on the Astros, so they were good buddies. And I always remember I'd be in the booth filling out my scorecard 3.5 hours before game time, and then I'd hear Harry's voice, "Where's the sweet pea? I'm looking for the sweet pea." And Harry come walking in, and that was his nickname for Joe. And I can't remember what I think Joe's nickname for Harry was the Vicious Thing, whatever that meant. I never found out where those nicknames came from, but so they'd known each other for years. And on occasion when we'd come into Philly, we'd ask Harry if he'd come in and do anything, because I think people knew his voice around the country from the NFL film.
Yeah.
The frozen tundra of Green Bay, Wisconsin, whatever. But for us, he was the baseball guy.
Right.
And it was so funny because he'd come in, he was just going to do the one inning, and he'd have like his big scorebook and an armful of books. And I said, Harry, what are all the books for? He said, well, I want to be prepared, and it's like, anyway, so he was fun, and I saw his son, Todd, early in the season. The Giants played in Houston, and Todd is an outstanding TV broadcaster for the Astros.
Yeah.
And we were talking about his dad, and he said that a prized possession for him is his dad's scorecard from the day he died. It was opening day in Washington, and he had written out the Phillies lineup and the Nationals lineup. He got as far as the cleanup hitter, Ryan Zimmerman or Anthony Rendon, whoever it was, and that was the last name. And I thought, wow, that must be so sad. But for him, it was something where a connection with his dad, but also with something his dad was doing because he loved it and had a passion for it, and right up to his final moments of life. And so that was kind of a poignant story, and I had no idea that something like that even existed, much less that he would have it and have it in a prominent place where he could periodically take a look, and it just would remind him of his dad. So, and I think Todd, he's got this similar voice to his dad, but his own style. And there are things about Todd I like better than his dad, so which may be sacrilegious if you're a Phillies fan, but I look at it as a tribute to Todd. He's his own broadcaster, and he does it differently. He's not trying to copy his dad, and I think he does a hell of a job with it.